I think we're live. Let me just see. This meeting is
So
now.
here, we're supposed to press that, I guess. Got it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations with the Galactic Alliance on the Conscious Awakening Network. So great to be with you all tonight. I'm Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, and I also have a podcast show called ATP Media, Accentuate the Positive, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness. And tonight we're going to explore another beautiful conscious being's story and his wisdom and teachings. His name is, I suppose I should, do the plug, like everybody go and check out the Conscious Awakening Network on the app, because there's an app that you can get on an iPhone or your Android phone that allows you to view all the different amazing videos that are on the Conscious Awakening Network. What Sheila Seppi has done is she's gathered conscious teachers from all over the world. I'm here in Australia, and we've got people online from all over the place that are teaching and awakening consciousness and expanding consciousness. And she's put them all together, all their different shows on the Conscious Awakening Network. I'm going to turn off the sound that plays when people join. So today we're going to explore Thomas Anderson's story. Let me just turn this sound off. Here we go. And let me bring Tom on. Welcome, Tom.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you. I welcome everyone that's joining in today. I guess all kinds of time zones are possible. And I'm really happy to be here. And welcome is a great word. It serves us all well. And I just want to thank Sheila for, putting this together, I guess you might say, and that Karen has been very helpful as well, and to all the technical people that have to be involved for this sort of thing. So welcome to everybody. And
we have to thank our tech guy. He's helping us with the live stream on many different platforms all over the place. It's on Apple TV and Roku, and it's also on the Conscious Awakening Network website, YouTube, and I think that you're up on Rumble and Odyssey now, aren't you, Mac? And also all over Facebook. And so we've got Mac is cruising the cosmos in his spaceship, and he's beaming down from outer space and helping us with our tech. But
how lucky we are, huh?
Let me tell people a bit about you, Thomas. So while in your early 20s, after practicing self-remembering for a short time, Tom Anderson, you had a profound spiritual awakening, a direct experience with the self. Since then, you've continued to practice self-remembering and witnessed consciousness on a minute-by-minute basis. And Tom, you're the author of a book called All American, Interesting Spelling, an autobiographical story which describes your spiritual evolution from boyhood to the present. And you were a dentist for over 40 years. You're now a retired dentist and married to the beautiful Pam. You've got 4 children, 5 grandchildren, and you live in North Maine. And your presentation tonight is about Gurdjieff's teaching on expanded human awareness. It says here, the first is the non-expression of the negative emotions, not for the suppression, but for the expansion of awareness and understanding. So I look forward to your presentation, and I might throw a few questions at you. I think that you're practicing dentistry near Vail for many years with all the skiers, right, Tom?
Yes. And
Colorado.
enjoyed every minute of it. I did. All right. Are we ready?
We are ready. Take it away.
All right. Well, welcome again. It's so, exciting to be here, really. Friend of mine, Gary Gilman, who we just checked in with a few minutes ago, is one who turned me on to this. And I like the idea of just sharing your own story. That nothing about lecturing to anybody, that when we share, our personal experiences, it just feels so much better than having someone lecture at us. So I want everybody to know this is just sharing my own experiences. Everything that I'm going to talk about, essentially, I have experienced. I'm not going from, philosophy, and I'm not really promoting Gurdjieff's teaching in a more wider scope. Just a couple of practices, exercises that have been mentioned, that we'll be mentioning them again. But before we get there, I'd like to say that the great being that I read said that whatever we value most, that's what we should share with other people. And so this is what I value, my own consciousness the most, and that's what I want to share. And when you think about it, consciousness for any one of us is everything. Without it, we're nothing, essentially. We've heard of the word toast, a goner, and other words, but if we're unconscious or severe mental illness or anything, you don't have your consciousness, you're really not a person anymore. So when you think about it, consciousness really is really important. And if you can understand it better, it can serve you so well, so practically that. So let me say that the part of the sharing, part of how I experienced what I'm going to be sharing with you momentarily, was to learn how to be consciously present. And so as I'm, sharing my story, I'd ask you people to just feel that. What does it mean to be consciously present for you? And see how that works. And to try to keep on track, not get off in tangents. I've got some notes here, and in some areas I'm actually just going to read from the notes for a short time, just because that's the way I want to say what I have to say. And so if you see me, looking for my notes, if there's a few moments of silence, check in with that being consciously present and feel the silence. See if you can actually feel the silence. It won't be that long, but it might be kind of fun to see how that works along with what I'm going to be sharing here. And that, and just the best you can. This isn't any contest or anything. Just we're all relaxed. Again, that's the part about sharing that attracted me to this venue, and that I felt like, yeah, this perfect place to offer something like this. So that, right. So now I think we'll just go to a short thing of how I became a seeker, because it's not that big a deal, but there's a few things I want to share just because it's so normal that the thing that cracked my cosmic egg was losing my first love, telling me she was going with another. 18 years old, thought we would be married, and etc. So it was a crack. It made me turn within and look at myself and wonder, how could she leave me? Come on. But from how many love songs, how many poems, how many things we know, this is, millions and millions and millions of people have had these sort of issues, that adversity forces people to turn within and take a closer look at themselves. And that's really the point that I make, that between me and all of you lovely folks out there, there's nothing different between us. We all understand that type of adversity, whether it's death, financial ruin, so many possibilities. And that the other thing that I'll share that made me become a seeker is the paranormal experiences. So yes, I'm in the club of the paranormal. Really what I'm speaking about tonight it has nothing to do with that. But these experiences, really let me know there's a lot of stuff out there that people don't talk about, don't recognize. And what that was is my first real high on alcohol, probably 15 years old. I, was so inebriated or whatever that I reached into a big boiling pot of corn because it looked so good. I decided, hey, I'm ready to have one. So I literally put my hand and fist in and grabbed a piece of the corn. And it was probably 8 or 10 people in the room, and everybody just freaked, stopped, and went, they couldn't believe I did that. But I did it with zero fear, and I never got burned, never even got red, nothing, zero. And it was everybody was surprised that how could that happen? And the other one was that in college, Friday afternoon, having a little R&R with my roommate, his girlfriend, sitting around a table, and all of a sudden, his girlfriend and I could speak to each other in our minds just as clear as I'm speaking or if I was listening to somebody. Neither one of us had ever had that happen before, and we were kind of shocked, but it wasn't any different than talking, except it was just, the inner voice, and it came through perfectly clear. So that, again, was just another incident that showed me that I needed to look at things a little deeper, see what I could find out. And that he grew up in the 60s and early 70s with the 60s revolution, and so much, breaking of norms, so many things going on, Vietnam War, that, there's a lot of questions for the young person. And again, it just puts me in with everybody else that, but there was so many questions, but essentially no good answers. So I decided, well, I gotta break out of the, my cultural norm a little bit and just see what I can find. That I had a very strong desire to have deeper understanding. So that's what got me going on this path way back. Like they say, probably 68 was the beginning of my seeking. That in the idea of these esoteric teachings, Gurdjieff said his teaching, somebody asked him, to define it or whatever, and he said, we could call it esoteric Christianity. And it's just meant by the inner life, the symbols. Joseph Campbell is a great author and great person, and talked about the planes of consciousness within us. And he said all the symbols in all these different things, from fairy tales to epic poems and heroes and all these sorts of things, always represent planes of consciousness within us, every symbol. And I would use the term levels of awareness, kind of brings it better to just be able to relate to it. And some of the audience might say, oh, no, let's stick with planes of consciousness. Go ahead, be my guest. I think that would just be fine. And that, but turning within, you can do self-inquiry. You can, the old saying of put yourself in someone else's shoes. Certainly helped me get started. Let me know that probably one of the reasons the lady left me was, I had some pretty hypocritical, actions as a teenager. Does anybody else can relate to that? I'm sure you can, especially as you get older. You look back and, I thought I knew a lot of stuff, but I was a little, bit immature. And the other one that I knew the truth of in my heart was the golden rule, to treat others as you would have them treat you. And I knew in, many cases, I didn't do that. And at the time that I was doing it, I didn't really think about it didn't strike me that I was not doing that. But in hindsight, again, self-inquiry, you could say, oh yeah, that was going on. And so again, just that turning within, that expansion of kind of stepping outside of yourself is, helpful. Obviously, it's subjective, and it's still, I didn't know at the time, but in the years after these experiences and really paying more attention, I could see that, well, with self-inquiry at the beginning stages, as chock full of cultural conditioning that you don't really understand that you have. You don't notice it, so you don't realize you're looking through a lens that's not really as clear as you think it is. So that was just another way of getting started, and then long story short, as they say, I ended up a bus driver told me about Gurdjieff, and I'd never heard of him, didn't know anything about him. He said, "Oh, the way you're speaking, I think you might like his, his teaching." So I, he gave me a book, and I, read probably, 20 pages or something. But it struck me, no, this guy's different than anything I've ever come across. So it enticed me to, check him out more, and took, still a while. It wasn't something I rushed into, but I kept it on the back burner, as they say. And then finally, that's how I ended up getting connected with him. And essentially, I wanted to tell everybody that in this presentation, nothing to believe, nothing to accept, and nothing to buy. Can you believe it? American is putting on this kind of thing, and we're not trying to sell you anything. And that it's the only thing that is required in the Gurdjieff, thing, and which is, I'm going to tell you in a minute, pretty much there's so many esoteric teachings that, again, talk about our inner life and how do you increase your own understanding of yourself, others, and the nature of consciousness itself. And that's what we're here what I'm here to share. And that it's, it was amazing to have the way that I got in touch with this showed me that the desire to know will draw things to you. So if you really have a desire to know, the fairy godmother out there can bring things your way that you wouldn't have expected. And that's how I got with the Gurdjieff thing. And I want you to know that everybody out there, every single one of you can do and perform these practices the same as I did. And so this is just the sharing. It's not really about me. It's about the potential of your own consciousness, human consciousness in all of us. When you've had higher experiences, you know it's the same stuff. And that the individual aspect of, where we're born, our, local cultural conditioning, our natural nationwide conditioning, etc. Obviously, that's all different, but the base of consciousness itself is the same. And so that's the key. If you hear something you like, hey, I can do this. There's nothing special about me whatsoever. That's why I just shared a little bit about how I became a seeker, to see that now, thousands, millions of people have had similar experiences. It made them wonder about things. It's that simple. And so now I want to share what I'm calling the essential or elementary esoteric teachings. That it sounds mystical, but as you'll see as we go through, that most people actually are quite familiar with these, just not under that name. They're more recognizable. That Aldous Huxley called them the perennial philosophy, because it keeps returning and returning, because people have the same inner experiences at the higher, at the heights of the consciousness or the depths, depending on which of those two terms seems to make more sense. And that Professor Jacob Needleman was a philosophy professor at San Francisco State, and he dubbed these same teachings the wisdom traditions. And so that's gives you hopefully a little better feel. But I'm going to now take a look at my notes and just read you just a few of these traditions, and you'll, I'm sure, be familiar with them. And again, these teachings have come out of the depths of consciousness, or whether you call them saints or sages. And when they have had these deep experiences, they basically have had the same experience. And they've talked about it in different ways because of their culture and their times. But when you look at them, no, they're all talking pretty much the same lingo, as we might say. And Gurdjieff actually referred to these people at the higher ends of the consciousness as the inner circle of humanity. I have no idea why he picked that term, but that was his way of talking about, where these teachings come from. And because they do come from the depths of consciousness, we all have them already within us. You just have to learn how to access them. And that's really what the esoteric teachings are telling us, is how do you do this? How do you get back towards the higher states of awareness and understanding? And so now with that, let me just read off a few of these. And first one, should never take any religion, philosophy, etc., on blind faith, on belief. And that Gurdjieff actually told his students, don't believe a word I say, just do what I'm asking you to do for these exercises, and you'll get to see for yourself what you experience. And then what you experience through your own efforts, that's all you're going to believe anyway. So it's the trust and verify, and that is essentially one of these teachings. And that I would say that's true again of all the teachings, all the masters, because if you believe, then you don't really make that much effort to actually do anything. You're just happy to believe, and that's the end of that. That's not a seeker. And to me, the second one, it says, what matters most is not what you believe, but how you behave. And this comes from Karen Armstrong, a prolific author of, what they call them, the sages, the ancient teachings, and so much more. But she was the one who in her book, The Great Transformation, uttered that thing. So I'll give her the credit for that. But you think of today, at least here in the USA, that it's kind of the opposite. And that in the idea that what matters most is what you believe, not how you behave. And if anybody's been watching the news in the USA, and obviously many places around the world, that's the predominant thing in the modern age. In that the Karen Armstrong also said that these esoteric teachings, that the purpose of religion or spirituality was to change you inwardly in a profound way. That was what the thing was, because the sages knew you had that potential. And again, they were offering things to say, how do you actually fulfill or achieve that? And another of her comments was that after these sages had their deep experiences, when they came back to offer advice to the people in their groups, in their surroundings, essentially all of them said, just follow the golden rule. That will take you where you need to go. And that was partly because the transcendent can't be translated into relative terms, and that it's over and over again in the literature, you see that, the transcendent can't be described. As Joseph Campbell told us, the transcendent means beyond all concepts. Well, if you're beyond all concepts, how can you really describe it? So you just kind of use metaphors, you use whatever you can use to give a feel, but it's only a feel. It's like, good food, good sunsets, good anything. If somebody's never been involved, talking about them is never going to give them even much of the experience that the person that can taste Maine lobster or Maine potatoes when they're fresh out of the ground. They're just as good as the lobster. And so now the next one is all of the esoteric teachings are about uncovering and exposing the falsity of the ego. Okay, and yes, the ego in these teachings, though, is about our individual sense of self. We all can relate to ego, whether it's celebrities, whether it's what I would call pompous politicians, billionaires, and we all have our images of what we would consider very good examples of ego. But in these teachings, it's not really about that. It's about telling us that our sense of self can mature and can evolve, can grow tremendously from where we are in that sense of an individual. And that's what these teachings are about. They show us how to, go back to these higher states. And the higher states have many, many, many levels. And so this isn't really a lecture about the transcendent state, the full blown, and I'm going to give you a little feel for that. But anytime you go beyond this very limited sense of self, which is what you do when you actually practice the golden rule, or that you have to do unto another. That's a lot of times you can't keep your ego, you can't keep your cultural conditioning, you can't see the other as other. You've got to see the humanity in them. You've got to see them in a different way. You've got to have a connection with your heart in order to actually live by the golden rule. And I'll talk about that just a little bit more through here. But so it says in Taoism, especially, the journey, the adventure, is known as the path or the way, in that it's always about compassion and kindness, forgiveness, and concern for others. And, you can go on and on with those type of, whether you call them virtues or whatever you'd like, but that was the essence of these esoteric teachings. You had to be in touch with your inner life in order to actually practice them. And today, in the United States, we don't see too many people practicing them. And they had on TV about it with a, I don't know, preacher, minister or something, and the interviewer asked him about that. You don't seem to be following the golden rule in other parts of Christianity. And his answer was, well, we're dealing with the evil other side, meaning the liberals, and therefore we don't have to follow those rules anymore. Well, I don't think the original sages would go with that one. They knew better than that everybody has the potential, just have to make more effort, have to be consciously present in order to remember, to at least try. That the Good Samaritan is in Christianity is the most famous, following the golden rule. And I think people can relate to that. If we're in trouble or whatever the case, we'd like someone to help us and do unto others. Again, it's such a simple rule. Most people can feel the truth of that, even though in their daily life they don't really ever think about it much. And now we've got to the point where not only that, we don't even, some of us in this country don't even respect truth anymore. That and that their behavior really is outrageous. And it's fine. They want to be outrageous, and that now it's becoming normal to do that, and that they all have the rights to do that, right? That they don't feel any need to discipline themselves, and so they're not even, that it's these esoteric teachings have really been basically totally forgotten about. Why did they actually tell us these things? So, but let me move on, and just to say that again, you don't have to believe a word I tell you in this little thing called the podcast, and that, but if you want to verify things for yourself, you'll see that the advice of these sages and what they call authentic paths actually get results. And it has nothing to do with beliefs. So that's essentially what I mean by the esoteric teachings. All right. And again, just a reminder that these teachings, that the ego refers to our sense of self, and that we all have to have a sense of self. Again, if you're conscious, you have a sense of self. And as automatic, everybody knows the feeling. But the teaching says, again, you can evolve, and that that's your right, your birthright, and that your potential, and everything's already within you to do this. You just have to learn how to actually do it. So they're the ones who tell us how to do it. And we just either want to do it, ready to do it. Truthfully, most people aren't ready. And that's why throughout the ages, these teachings were, whether you call them secret, underground, pretty private, because the teachers knew that the vast majority of the public was not ready to do these things because it's voluntary. You have to do it on your own because you want to. And obviously a lot of people just aren't ready for that. So, and it's fine. That's where they are. That's the beauty of the esoteric teachings, is they're not telling you you're a sinner or anything. They just happy to, again, compassion, kindness, forgiveness. That's their way they operate, and that there's no real judgment. So, and it, just as a reminder that the behavior in the United States of so many of our politicians and citizens shows you that this immaturity of these adults, that they, that's other words you could use, but the immaturity is really the essence of what they're showing us. And they're happy to do it. Used to be behind closed doors, you could, be a little more immature and a little looser, but now, no, do it right in public, and that's just fine. So with that, we're ready to talk about Gurdjieff's first teaching, the non-expression of negative emotions. And when I first heard that, I thought, wow, that's interesting. Nobody ever mentioned anything like that. And it took me a while to get clear what that really meant. And Gurdjieff said, well, what this is that when you feel a negative emotion come up, you're ready to spit it right out. And said, instead of doing that, just, acknowledge it, but instead of uttering it, expressing it, just, use the energy that you normally would to express it, and step back and look at the whole situation. Really, become Sherlock and just really intently look at the whole thing, yourself, the situation. How many times have I been here? What good is this going to accomplish? How do I feel after I do this? He didn't give those particular instructions. He just said, check it out intensely. And I thought, boy, at the beginning, I had really no idea what he was talking about, but I thought it was so interesting. I was going to try it. I was working as a cook in Vail at a little tiny, shop, a restaurant, soup and sandwich. And so I got my first opportunity where I was consciously present and not present, but I didn't immediately utter a negative emotion when the waitress came and told me that, hey, this person, doesn't like this or doesn't think it's right, whatever the question was. And sure enough, I felt the urge to defend myself, blame her for not writing it down, or blame the customer, because we used to call them turkeys. And but instead of doing that, I'm participating in this non-expression. So I listened to what she said and took care of it. And of course, in a little shop like this, it was very easy to correct whatever was needed. And the waitress was so happy, the customer was happy, and of course, I was happy because they were happy. And I did this a few times, and that it, got to be, you could, see what was going on here. You understood, oh, I'm culturally conditioned to respond this way. I had worked with some cooks on the Canadian National Railroad in summer jobs, and these cooks were tough, man. They were emotional, had emotional issues, you might say, and they were mean, and they liked being mean and tough, and they were expressing all the time. So I thought, well, I don't know if I learned that from them, but it's kind of a normal thing. The ego likes to defend itself, doesn't like to have, people to comment on it and not stick up for himself, as it thinks that's what it's doing. So after a bit, I was very clear on how this pattern worked. And Vail, Colorado was such an amazing place to be. 24 years old, the skiing was so good, the weather was so good, the scenery, everything about it was just, it's like being in Disneyland, except outdoors, doing something you enjoyed. And there was almost no negative emotions anywhere outside the restaurant in this little tiny little dance that I just mentioned. But what surprised me after doing this for a little bit was, I completely understood this little game, this little knee-jerk reaction. But each time it happened, boy, that inner voice was like a junkyard dog just ready to, pounce. And I thought, wow, that's surprising. I would have thought that would have kind of gone away, or at least toned way down. No, no, sir, by God, it was the same as it was. And it just reminded me, if I'm not consciously present, that thing's going to be out of my mouth before I even know it. And so that showed me that that one little exercise was way more worthwhile to really understanding myself, even though it was still a little bit than the self-inquiry, self-observation that I had done like the previous 6 years, which I learned a lot. I'm not saying people shouldn't do that. Just saying that when you've got an authentic exercise from one of these esoteric teachings, did make a big difference. That it really showed me that I, again, how conditioned I was, but not, just in that one plane. I didn't at all have the idea, any understanding how conditioned I really was. That was Gurdjieff's second practice, that at the beginning, I didn't really know what he meant by self-observation accompanied by self-remembering. I, kept thinking about that. I knew self-observation part, but the self-remembering was like, God only knows, what is he talking about? And I only had books. I didn't have anybody else to talk to that had done anything like this. So I just kind of waited. And I finally got a breakthrough that my friend Doug, who was living in Vail and was part of the EST seminars, again, this was 75, and that we went to Aspen for his midweek rally, I call it, pep rally. And of course, I wasn't allowed in, I wasn't in the seminars. So I sat in the lobby and was reading my book, one of Gurdjieff's students, that the book was called In Search of the Miraculous. Like, what a great title. It's very kind of a complicated book, but in the one section, he talks about his first experience of self-remembering. I went, oh, finally, I'm going to get a better feel of what's this mean? What is this? In his way of putting it, he had a little stick man drawing with an arrow going out away from the drawing. And he said, well, that represents our natural awareness. And then he had another line drawn back towards the stick man. And he goes, that's self-remembering. You have to have another line of awareness on yourself at the same time that your normal awareness is doing its normal thing. And I went, whoa, I've never heard anything like that before. That's kind of an interesting, suggestion. But I immediately recognized something about it. I said, oh, that has got potential. And I, didn't know why, but really it kind of got me excited. And I thought, hey, I'm going to go for this. That now that I finally kind of know what it is. And another way of thinking about this, Plotinus is a famous Greek mystic from, I don't know, like 200 or 300 AD. And that he, AD, there's an old habit. But anyway, his thing was that you have to look in two directions at once. And I thought, well, that kind of describes the same thing. And so I thought, well, I was leaving for Idaho to visit my uncle the next morning. Hey, what a great opportunity I have to go and be in my car and see if I can practice this new interesting, exercise. And so sure enough, get in the car, get going, and it was pretty clear of what he meant. Now, Gurdjieff's way of describing it was, if you are not present in your observations, they're worthless. And of course, his intent was they're worthless if you want to get to know the consciousness you already have. And then another teacher put it in a way that, maybe in the modern day is a little more sensible or easier to relate to, that do you know what your mind is up to during your daily routine? And so with that, I'm just now going to present a, fairly quick rendition of what it was like to, do this practice. And you mentioned the book that I had written that describes this in much, much greater detail. Unfortunately, the self-publisher that I had that through went bankrupt, and he kept the master file. And I, have been thinking I can get this thing revived, but it hasn't happened yet. And so it wasn't an ebook and a physical book on demand, but unfortunately not available right now. And so anyway, with that, so I got in my car driving up to Idaho from Vail, Colorado. And of course, scenery is very beautiful, the mountains, the valleys, so many great scenes. But I found out right away, now, I can't even remember to do the practice. My mind wants to just go off in so many directions. And so I'd say, okay, I can do a lot better than this. So I'd set up, make sure the chiropractor told me you got to have a straight back. Your spine's got to be, straight, gives you more energy, and in this case, focus. And so same thing, give it the try. No, that mind wants to go, everywhere but, what I want to do with it. And then it wasn't probably half an hour, and I realized I got to turn the radio off. That thing is, just distracting me. Something or a song and make me think of somebody else, and then the mind is off and running. And I thought of that as trains of thought. That something would happen all of a sudden. We used to say the tape would start playing of that old scene or that same old thing you had thought of many times. And so that went on, and I realized, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. That I have a degree in analytical chemistry, and it took tremendous focus with a lot of math, chemistry problems. And, so I was able to stay, very focused for long periods to do that sort of exercises. But this turned out, no, it's not the same. That's outer focus on something particular. Here, you're trying to keep the focus on yourself, and realized, no, I can't do it. And that not only can't do it, my mind doesn't listen to me. It doesn't care that I want to do this. It's just got its own thing. Its habits are so, ingrained that it's just winging off all over the place. So I had to finally start laughing at myself, because it was so obvious that I just couldn't do this, But it kind of got my dander up a little bit. And by the end of the first day, I had told myself, okay, first thing in the morning, my goodness, I am going to be all over this, and I'm not going to let my mind just start, going on and on. I thought it was like verbal diarrhea. It was how bad it was. And if any of you try this, I think you'll find out that you'll have the same experience that I did. So in the second day went along pretty much the same way. And I knew, I'm making little improvements, but boy, I seriously couldn't stay present, know what my mind was doing for more than, whether it's a couple of minutes at the most. And most of the time, I probably wouldn't even make a minute. And so I got to the place in Idaho where my uncle told me, here, I'll meet you at this place. It's easy off the highway. So I pull off and go into the truck stop, and I didn't drink coffee then, so I don't know what I had. But anyway, as I'm sitting there waiting for him and trying to, do this practice of self-observation, self-remembering, I hear my mind say, I wonder if this is the right place. And I was, thank goodness, established enough in what I had at that point called the watcher of the mind. And in the literature, the Hindus especially call it the witness of the mind. And so I'm going to use that term, and actually momentarily, practically, I'm going to call it the pure vigilant awareness of the witness. Because again, that's the way I experienced it. But anyway, back to the story, I was kind of, again, laughing like, okay, mind, how could I get here? How could I even know this place existed if this isn't the right place? And it just kind of, again, silly. How come the mind comes up with this sort of nonsense, you know? And then it wasn't a few minutes later, and the mind said, oh, you're going to be around other people now, and you're not going to be able to do this. You're just finally making such a little bit of progress, and now it'll be ruined because you're going to be with a bunch of other people instead of alone. And thank goodness I was in the watcher, the witness of the mind, and just went, who knows? Let's see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to, let that little thought. But at that point, the thoughts and emotions, these play of the mind, I had, realized this thing isn't really me, that I'm much more the watcher of the mind than all these thoughts and emotions that have always played in my mind. I've always assumed was me. No one ever told me they weren't. No one ever told me they were. But I think all of you recognize, yes, it's so-called normal to assume that that's what you are. So we're placing our sense of self into those thoughts and emotions. And that's where in these teachings that represents this sense of self, this immature aspect of what we're calling our ego. But our ego is our sense of self. Again, don't think of it as the pompous politicians in the extreme so-called cases. No, that's not really what we're talking about. But anyway, so the next day, my uncle's changing a tire. So I'm sitting on the porch of this little general store and run down. I mean, this place ready to fall down. They had the place to change the tire. So I'm sitting on the porch trying to, again, stay in this being consciously present. To me, that's the same thing as self-remembering now, years later. And so I'm sitting there, trying my best. Truck pulls up, two guys get out that were dressed like cowboys, like they were on a movie set. Being from the other side of the country, my mind immediately went, oh my God, what a couple of hicks. How could they dress like that? Of course, I didn't say it, but I heard my mind say it. It immediately knew, no, I'm the idiot. Why does my mind want to do that sort of thing? It's obviously prejudice. It's silly. Don't know these people. But it showed me, I've made a lot more progress than I thought I did. Because now I can see, again, whether you want to call it ego, but that's putting my sense of self in that, thoughts of those boys 2 weeks earlier, a week earlier, I would have never noticed that. I would have actually believed, that my mind was giving me good advice, a good observation, that they were a couple of, hicks or whatever other words would have come out. And so that's the real essence. So I'm just going to skip ahead here. So from the next number of days, it was, similar, and of course, lots of experience, but the feeling of getting really connected with what I'm calling that pure vigilant awareness of the witness really got very powerful. And it was obvious that I was not this silly, uncontrollable mind. And Gurdjieff had said, before you can really get serious about, taking up these teachings, you've got to see your own predicament. And the predicament was just what I'm talking about, meaning that couldn't control my mind, couldn't remember to remember, the what I call associative thinking or tangential thinking, that my mind would go off on this one thing. I'd see a car or memory would come up, start a train of thought, and during that train of thought, some other thing would happen, and all of a sudden I'd jump onto that train of thought without even noticing I hadn't finished the first one. And so, again, that's the predicament, that we think that we're conscious beings and that we're in control. And when you really look closely, as I'm just describing, you realize, no way. I'm fine when I'm focused. If I'm doing dentistry, if I'm doing whatever, the mind works very good. But trying to stay present, now it doesn't look so good. So that is, so on the 9th day, I entered into the transcendent, and it just came over me. I was sitting on the beach, Vancouver, British Columbia, looking at this beautiful scenery, and it was gorgeous. And at that point, I had no more questions. I was extremely happy. I felt, I was in heaven. I had gotten everything I'd ever hoped for, even way more than I could have ever hoped for. And that's when the transcendent just kind of bubbled up within me. Patanjali says the self will reveal itself when you still the thoughts of the mind. And that it's interesting because in this, you try to still the thoughts of the mind, sit there and meditate, suppress them. It's again pretty close to impossible. If you want to be a monk or a yogi, take 20, 30, 40, 50 years to do intense practice every day. Don't work. This is your work. You might be able to accomplish this. So the point is that by just shifting my sense of identity into the witness without trying, just doing the practice, it happened automatically. And then the mind calmed down to the point where it just, there wasn't really any more thoughts. And the few that would come by, it would be like Ken Wilber saying, you are the awareness, and that whatever rises into your awareness, that's not you. That's just, given thoughts and things. That doesn't mean they're bad or good, just means you're aware of them. So that's it. And now let me just give back and say that to give you a little better feel of the ego, I'm just going to read a few, descriptions of what I would call ego and see what people, how you react. And I would just ask you to say, to really put your sense of self in the word and feel like, what does that do to me when I have that, whether you want to call it experience or not, and just do that. So here we go. Selfish, stubborn, superficial, fearful, angry, very defensive, easily insulted, likes to gossip and judge others, liar, wants to be the center of attention. And then we'll say, having no respect for others, no gratitude, no tolerance, no genuine compassion. The ego's good at faking compassion or faking other virtues, but it's not the true thing. And that we've all know the feelings of no one cares, no one appreciates me, no one likes me, those sorts of things. So that's ego. And the point I want you to think about is when we put our sense of self, what Gurdjieff would call put our I into those feelings, it's not pretty, is it? It drains our energy. and that it's just not, and it's unconscious. It's not that conscious. So that is why these teachings want you to pay attention to these things. And then how we doing, Karen?
Beautiful, Thomas, lovely. I think it's time for questions now. I've got a few I'd like to throw at you, and there's quite a few fabulous comments here, people listening to you. And Susie says, so beautiful, Thomas, we're really relating to your experience. And she's got a question already. Susie, you want to come on and ask your question?
Sorry, Penny.
Thomas, it's so beautiful listening to you. I can relate so well. I'm a year younger than you, and I didn't do the Colorado ski resorts. I did the Salt Lake City ski resorts, and I became a cook. And I got so many things. And I had a boyfriend way back when that introduced Gurdjieff and Ouspensky to me, and I just am so thrilled that you're bringing it back to us. I don't really have a question as much as just, I was here in the very beginning when you and Karen were talking, and you wondered if you would fit in and stuff. You're fitting in so beautifully here. Our hearts are so receiving what you're just perfect for what we need tonight. So thank you so much. I personally relate completely to what you're bringing to us, and I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Well,
Susie.
you are welcome. And right, isn't it fun when you come from the heart? That's another thing I learned right away, is that the witness is the same as the heart, really. And the heart means spirit, and the witness is the spirit. In the literature, Shankaracharya said, who's one of the most famous saints of India, that the witness is consciousness, and it will lead to a quiet mind. And again, absolutely my experience, that I wasn't trying to quiet my mind. I was just keeping my identity in there. And I wanted to say that yes, the ego is guilty of identity theft. And this is throughout these teachings, that we are not this crazy, opinionated, and some of the words I just read, that's not who we are. We are this pure awareness, and that's the essence of these teachings.
Yeah, we really are the consciousness that you're speaking, and our ego just kind of fools us occasionally. A lot less occasionally than it used to be, but it still rips us off occasionally. But yeah, beautiful presentation, and I just feel all warm inside. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much, Thomas.
You're such a love bubble, Susie. You're just so full of love.
This is your chance to reconnect with, Gurdjieff's effort, Ouspensky's effort. So many different authors and people around over the centuries have made the effort to help all of us move forward and be more loving, be more compassionate. And when we know that's who we are. That's much more who we are. And that's why you can get involved.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
So I see Celeste has your hand up. I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you first, if you don't mind, Celeste.
Yes.
A couple of things. I've got a couple of questions. I wanted to ask you about when you delved into the boiling water when you were a kid to get the corn and you didn't burn. I want your opinion on what you thought happened. I also I'm going to throw 3 questions at you, and then I'm going to let you answer. And then I want to know if you've had that same telepathic experience again, where you were in complete telepathic communication with somebody else. And how did practicing all this that you've shared with us tonight, how did that change, or how did it affect your life as a dentist? Or anyway, there you go. There's 3 questions.
Okay, so the first one, no, that because of the alcohol and being 15, never having hard alcohol before, and didn't realize it was going to come up and hit me you can drink it down pretty quick and it doesn't seem like much. So no, when I put my hand in there, there was no fear, no judgment, no consideration. It was just, I wanted the corn and I'm going for it. So it was completely, just pure. And I think whether it's fire walking or any other thing like that, that's the key. You got to keep that worried mind out of the, out of the experience. And no, I never had another experience of telepathy like that. Nothing, zero. And being a senior, I've already forgot your third question.
How did practicing this
Okay. Well,
affect your life?
The key for what I would say was that the practice of that led me to this profound state of what they call the transcendent. And when you have that experience, you receive direct knowledge. And direct knowledge means that the pure spirit, whether you call it the Holy Ghost or the Kundalini Shakti or many names, just informs you. So you realize at that moment that you could have never got to this place on your own, that your own mind, intellect, etc., would never, ever, ever get you here. So the only way you get there is through grace. And again, these teachings tell us, well, you have to prepare, you have to have a silent mind, or that energy is so subtle it can't inform you because your mind's too busy doing something else. And therefore, and plus you're not ready. Once you understand that your inner being, this inner spirit is in you and everybody else, then the respect, the compassion, the stuff comes forth. Now your conditioning and stuff is still there. So it's not like instantly you become a saint or something, but it definitely affects how you look at people. And before I started practicing dentistry, my very first patient in Vail, I told myself, I have to remember who I'm really working on, meaning I'm working on pure spirit that's in some form, and I've got to focus on the spirit, and then everything will be fine from there, because then you're following the golden rule. You're going along with these, kindness, compassion from your true heart, not just faking it so you'll have more patience.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so you felt completely guided. That's gorgeous. Solaris. Oh, I'm not saying your name right, am I? I'm butchering your name, aren't I? Do you want to come on camera? Should I spotlight you?
No, we can do it this way. I'd rather not be in the spotlight, but can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you. You want to ask your question?
Okay. Thank you so much, Thomas. This was extremely relatable. It felt like you were telling my story because a lot of the examples you chose are questions and examples and things that I stepped into. I really enjoyed what you said about when you come from the heart, things fall into place and guide you where your soul's journey needs to go. You didn't say it exactly that way, but I'm rephrasing. I have a comment and then a kind of a silly question. The comment is, in terms of what we're going through in these times, I find my own experiences have led me from different modalities of wisdom without really getting too deep into them and not knowing the reasons. So I'll give you the example of many of us have dabbled in crystals or just different types of energy healing. And, Gurdjieff is another philosopher that has a lot of practices that he sends out. So we can pick that modality. But I guess I wanted to comment on how we need to absorb and understand the purpose of the ritual or the practice within ourselves to each person to make it work. Otherwise, just following, like walking around with crystals, it just doesn't work, because the resonance that we share within ourselves doesn't match what the resonance is expecting from the other side. So that's just a comment. Maybe you can address it. Like, we have to really understand the depths of these rituals and these practices before it works for us. And then my question, which is silly, is Gurdjieff is somebody that I had recently been introduced to. And one of the funny things I had learned about him is his personality ranges from being super scholastic to silly to downright lunatic. And I'm wondering what you thought about how that influences his teachings. Thank you so much, Thomas.
All right. Well, with respect to Gurdjieff, way back, because I got so much from him, as I've just told you, that I read almost everything that was printed on him. And he certainly was a character. He certainly was, amazing person. And since then, and being around other teachers, you realize that the sincere teacher, Gurdjieff, wouldn't let just anybody come and be a student. That he tested them. He wanted them to really want to know, want to learn, want to expand their own awareness. It's like, I'm not going to waste time on these people just kind of curious. And so when you're in that mode of being the teacher, and he claimed, subtly, that he was fully enlightened. And whether he was, of course, there's no way to really tell. But at that level, the teacher will go out of their way to give the student lessons, whatever that particular student needs. They don't care about what other people think of them or what they're going to say about them or anything like that. So when you take that into consideration, it can help you at least have some sense of why would he be such a character. And that, one of the students was a pretty young fellow, and they get on this train going somewhere, and Gurdjieff just made the biggest fit. It's like 1 a.m. or something, woke everybody up, complaining about everything, and just, making the biggest scene he could possibly make. And what the young guy's mind was doing. So to me, he's trying to give him a dramatic experience of his mind and how it's going off, and worried about everything, because that's what the teacher wants the student to see, just like I just described. Finally understanding that, I am not these thoughts and emotions in my mind. I am the one who's aware of them. And so anyway, that's what comes up for me when I hear that. And I loved reading about his thing, but I don't know if I'd want to really be one of his students.
So what you're saying, Thomas, is like he was playing out the craziness of the mind of the student. He was acting it out so that the student could see in a literal sense, like what his mind was doing physically. Do you know who else does that? Kids on the spectrum. Like,
who's that?
Kids on the spectrum, or like really psychic kids, like they'll act out and play out the craziness of their parents' minds or the people around them. Like kids on the spectrum, they do that too. They like show you what's going on in your mind by, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another part of it is get you to be consciously present and get the experience of that intensity. And that's why I said at the beginning that this is really about being consciously present and what it can do for you. It gives you choices. I thought of what I'm calling the witness as the catbird seat, because it's the best place to be. You're aware of both aspects of your consciousness, the deeper, the silent, the very alert, awareness, then you're aware of all the nonsense that arises into the awareness. So you have a better choice. If your thoughts are reminding you that you forgot to pay a bill, great. If they're giving you some great insight, great. You can choose to take it. But if it's just nonsense, you just choose to ignore it, and it doesn't pull you in to all of this drama that drains your energy, confuses you, and just is terrible. That's the misery and the suffering that the Buddha was talking about.
The Buddha. So Nissan has a question. Nissan, do you want to come on camera, or do you want to just hang back?
Whichever's fine with me. I don't.
Okay, I'll pop you on. I'll pop you on Spotlight. Where are you? Add Spotlight. And also Don says here, ooh, witness as the heart. Never thought about that. Cool.
Well, that's what you do the practices so you get the direct experience. Again, it's not about believing somebody, because then you never get the experience. You actually got to do these things, and that I would recommend to anybody that's even slightly interested just to go for a long walk and see how consciously present you can be. And if you really want to go for it, go for a weekend by yourself into nature, and just what I just told you, just try to be the watcher, and you'll learn more than you could imagine.
Yeah. Nissan, what did you want to ask or say?
Yeah. So I'm glad you talked about this. This is one of the aspects of the three selves that I follow in the teaching I follow, but I also think it's important that there's a very important aspect to focus on in terms of spiritual goals, to try to get control of and control and set you on a direction, which is very powerful. What I find is some people sometimes also neglect or start fighting the other aspects of self, which could be a problem I've seen happen. So the other thing of the information that you keep hearing, all the negative thoughts and all the other stuff, that you say is not you. Yeah, that's the other aspect of which we call that the id. And then we have the highest form, we call the higher self, which is the more one that's closest to source, that is deepened from the information that is from the other realms. But so I think it's important, while even though observing and watching it, I think it's also important to try to understand that part of self, instead of completely separating that as something separate from you, but as an important piece of something that has a purpose, because the ego itself has a purpose, and the uniform sense of self serves a very important purpose, but it could be detrimental if people don't fully grasp of how it works. So I think, I don't know if you ever had the problem, that issue where you would start not only, it's good because you talked about an aspect in which you question your mind, which was great. Questioning is a great thing. As a Socrates study, I agree with that. But also, have you ever fallen into the trap of also fighting with that self in another means? Because I think we should talk about that to make sure that people don't get into that kind of dilemma. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. My wife's going to repeat some of the questioning, because my hearing.
Sheila can repeat it too. Questioning.
No, it's Karen.
Or Karen.
But anyway.
Have you ever fallen into fighting with yourself? Is that the question, Karen? Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
No, because all I can say is my experience was so profound of being in the deep awareness of the witness, that it had so many insights, so many things come through that are so powerful, that I get to see that these thoughts and emotions just weren't me. You know, I was this pure awareness, and that's what Eckhart Tolle, you know, you're not the voice in your head, you're the one who's aware of it. Well, my whole talk tonight is just talking about that experience. So the fighting, but I certainly understand that, you know, sometimes my mind definitely, I get caught in it. I'm not claiming to be fully enlightened or anything, so I know the experience well. But when I feel contracted, when I feel other energy patterns of being stuck, my sense of self being in those things instead of being the awareness that's aware of them, enough experience I can jump out of that and know that that's part of me. But again, that's the immature, undeveloped part of me. It's like in the ugly duckling. The ugly duckling is, you know, imbalanced, and it's got, you know, it's not very pretty. That represents the ego in its early, you know, immature stage. Well, the end of the story, when the duckling grows up and is pure beauty and grace and everything, the swan. Well, the swan in certain of these esoteric teachings.
That wasn't the point of the ugly duckling. The ugly duckling was ugly because the ducks thought he was a duck when he was a goose. Well, when he was,
I hear you.
The duck didn't do anything. The swan didn't do anything different going up. He didn't change. He just grew up into a swan and then learned, oh, I'm not a duck, I'm a swan. That was the only revelation there.
Right, but to me, the real issue is that the swan represents full enlightenment.
Right.
And therefore, with proper development, that's the end of the story. With us humans, it doesn't happen automatically. If you don't make an effort to
how does the swan itself represent enlightenment? The enlightened moment for the swan was when he met the other swans and realized, oh, I'm not a duck, I'm a swan. That was the enlightening moment. He realized what it was. It becoming a swan is not him becoming enlightened. It became enlightened once he realized that he was already a swan. He was never not a swan.
Like we are already enlightened. We were never not enlightened. Thank you, Nissan. We're going to wrap it up now because Susie is going to play for us and play some beautiful music. So thank you for your questions and your wisdom, Nissan.
Thank you, everyone. And I've had a good time. I hope other people have enjoyed, you know, again, just someone else's experience, and hopefully you can get something out of it. And I definitely encourage people to give it a try, whether it's not expressing negative emotions that you express all the time. Try to resist it and see what you can learn.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It's been beautiful to hear your story. And as you say, you've got nothing to sell. You haven't even got your book to sell.
That's right.
You've got no website, no social media. So if people want to find you again, I don't know how they do that. Maybe
we'll see. Sheila knows how to get a hold of me.
Sheila knows how to get a hold of you. So contact Sheila if you want to chat or connect with Thomas and Pam. And Pam, I can see you in the background there, Pam.
Yeah. She's my ears. When I don't know that the tone of some people's voice is very difficult for me to pick up.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But she's my helper.
But a beautiful, enlightened, and poignant.
Thank you.
Poignant conversation. I've been dealing with some people this week who are amazing teachers out there, but I think that this fundamental wisdom people need to be reminded of, especially when they get into ridicule and judgment and fear, and they don't even realize they're doing it. People sometimes they're so justified in their points of view that this attack on others becomes so righteous. You know what I mean? Even when
self-righteous, we know what that means. And again, your sense of self now is totally in that emotional state. There's nothing left to be the watcher.
Yeah.
And that's why, whether it's judgments or any of these things, these teachings tell us don't go there.
Well, you can go there if you want to. It just doesn't feel so.
Yes. Well,
Good night, buddy.
Pam wants to hear the song. Thank you, Thomas. I hope you and Pam will stay for the song. And
we certainly will.
Susie, what are you going to sing for us tonight?
I don't have my piano or guitar. Let's hope that YouTube throws me some music without a commercial, but I'm going to sing Love is a Many Splendored Thing. And I change a few of the words out all the time. Ready?
Ready.
Love is a many splendored thing. It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring. Love is nature's way of giving, such a reason to be living. The golden crown that makes us all a king and queen. Once on a high and windy hill, in the morning mist, all the star seeds kissed, and the world stood so still. Then your fingers touched my silent heart and taught it how to sing. Yes, true love's a many splendid thing, a high and lonely hill. In the morning mist, all of the star seeds kissed, and the whole world stood still. Love is nature's way of giving, such a great way to be living. The golden crown that makes us all a king and queen. Once on a high and windy hill, in the morning mist, all of us star seeds kissed, and the whole world stood still. Then all of your fingers touched my silent heart and taught it how to sing. Yes, true love, a many splendid thing. I love you guys so much.
Oh, that's fantastic, Susie. Are you doing another one for us, or is that it?
That's it tonight. I don't have a piano guitar. I could pull one off. I could. Let me try. Do you want one? Do you want another one?
Well, let's see what the group says. Put your thumbs up if you want another one. Georgie's, yeah, everyone's clapping. We've got a few clapping. Not a lot of cameras on tonight. Got a thumbs up. Well, we got a couple of thumbs up, so let's go for it, Susie.
Okay,
One more.
hold on. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Hold on. Give me 30 seconds here. Okay, here we go. Let's try it. Okay. Come on, go. We're depending on YouTube for my music here. Okay, here we go. I usually have a piano, but I'm on a beautiful friend's sofa, so here we go. You You all are so beautiful to me. You are all so beautiful to me. Can you see? You're more than I could have hoped for. You are everything I need. You all are so beautiful to me. And you are so beautiful to me. This tribe is so beautiful, so beautiful. To me, you all are so beautiful. To me, I hope you can all see this, 'cause you're everything that I hope for. And you're everything I need. Oh, you all are so beautiful to me.
Oh, so beautiful.
Oh, you are so beautiful to me.
That was really special. Thank you, Susie. That was
Oh,
really special. And
I
thanks
love
again,
I
Thomas.
love
And
singing for this group. I love singing for you, Karen.
oh, darling,
Oh,
you're a rock star. All right. Well, we'll stop the live streaming, and you can stay on the chat, and we'll just, if anyone wants to, chat while I turn off the live streaming. Thanks for everyone that's been watching the live streaming. It's been beautiful to present for Sheila tonight. She's having a good old time wherever she is. All went well. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you